January 23, 1943, Eglin Field Proving Ground, Florida. The thermometer read 14 degrees Fahrenheit, an unseasonable bite for the Panhandle. Steam curled from a barrel that had just betrayed its crew for the 17th time in 2 hours. Before him stood the Browning M2.50 caliber, America's primary aircraft weapon, frozen and useless on its test mount. Major Robert Johnson of the Army Air Forces Armament Laboratory threw his clipboard onto the sand. "This is impossible," he said. "We've got 423 B-17s in England, each mounting 13 of these guns. That's 5,499 weapons that will freeze the moment they climb above 20,000 feet. When the guns jam, our bombers are defenseless." Samuel Green, a 52-year-old master toolmaker from Hartford, Connecticut, a man who never finished high school, never served in the military, and had never designed a weapon, stared at the silent gun with the calm curiosity of someone who made a living solving problems by feel. Army ordnance experts and Browning engineers had declared the failure unsolvable. Young men were dying over Germany because the guns meant to protect them stopped firing. Green put down his file, opened a small notebook, and wrote one line that would change automatic weapons design forever. "The problem is not the gun. The problem is that we are trying to make the gun behave the way we think it should instead of listening to how the gun wants to work." Major Johnson blinked. "That makes no sense," he said. Green shrugged and produced a worn machinist's file. "Sir, your math didn't design this gun. John Browning did, by feel. I'm a toolmaker. I understand feel. Give me a week and I'll make it never jam again." The Army's engineers were horrified. "The specifications exist for a reason," they said. "You can't simply change them." Green ignored them. In his basement workshop, he took apart a failed gun, measured every part, and reassembled it slowly, trusting his hands. He felt a tiny binding in the bolt carrier, traced it to a barely perceptible bend in the channel, less than 0.0002 inches over 12 inches, well within tolerance but enough, when lubricants thickened in Arctic cold, to stop the bolt. Green filed the bolt carrier down by 0.003 inches, a change that by engineering standards ruined the weapon. By practical standards it freed the bolt to travel even when the channel was imperfect. In tests at -30 degrees Fahrenheit, the modified gun ran flawlessly, hundreds, then thousands of rounds with no jams. Where engineers saw violation of specs, Green saw reliability. Word reached Eglin Field. On January 23, in 14 degrees Fahrenheit weather, Green's weapon was mounted on the test rig. 2,000 rounds without a single malfunction. Chambers chilled to -50 degrees Fahrenheit, then fired, perfect. Deliberately fouled with sand and dirt, still flawless. The skeptics were stunned. A civilian toolmaker, working with a file and conviction, had solved what months of engineering and millions of dollars had failed to fix. A chaotic meeting followed. Ordnance engineers argued theory, Green explained simply, small clearances assume perfect parts and perfect channels. Real parts aren't perfect. Give the bolt room, and the mechanism tolerates imperfections. Major Johnson cut through the debate. "We have men dying. We need a solution." Comprehensive testing began February 1. Green personally modified 20 M2S from 3 manufacturers and subjected them to brutal trials: sustained fire, high-altitude simulation, intentional fouling. Result: modified guns failed in cold only 0.8% of tests, unmodified guns failed 68%. Implementing the change, quickly and at scale, was the next hurdle. The Army estimated 18 months and $12 million to rework the inventory. But when Lieutenant General William Cunin visited Eglin, watched the guns, and asked 2 questions, can armorists do this quickly in the field? Can production lines adapt without slowing? Green answered yes, about 45 minutes per weapon, no new tools required. Cunin ordered immediate implementation. The ripple was swift. Instructions were distributed within a week. Production lines updated within 2. Mobile modification teams were in place within a month. Within 3 months, tens of thousands of M2S had been modified. By 6 months, nearly every existing gun carried what became known informally as Green's Fix, officially Modification 743. The combat impact was immediate and stark. Malfunction rates on 8th Air Force missions plummeted. Where 57% of missions once reported failures, that number dropped as modifications rolled out. By June, commands reported malfunction rates under 4%. In the first quarter of 1943, 14 B-17s had been lost after total weapons failure. In the second quarter, after widespread modification, only 2. German pilots noticed. Reports from captured airmen described American gunners maintaining steady, deadly fire where previously weapons had failed. Green's fix did more than save bomber crews. Tankers, sailors, infantry, every formation that used the .50 caliber saw improved reliability. In the Pacific, naval anti-aircraft mounts and weapons exposed to salt and humidity performed better. In one dramatic case on November 2, 1943, a pilot who survived catastrophic hits credited weapons that never failed. Army engineers later concluded he likely would have died without Green's modification. The technical legacy endured. The principle of operational tolerance, prioritizing reliable clearance and functional testing over theoretical perfection, reshaped automatic weapons design. Post-war firearms from the M60 to later rifles adopted design thinking that favored real-world reliability. Samuel Green received the Medal for Merit in April 1943 from General Henry Arnold, accepted it quietly, then returned to Pratt & Whitney and a life of steady work. He kept the hundreds of letters from grateful servicemen in a wooden box in his basement and rarely spoke of his achievement. The battlefield impact was immediate and brutal in its clarity. Before the fix, failure rates in cold conditions hovered around 60 to 70% in some tests. After it, malfunction rates plunged below 1%. Bomber crews who had been sitting ducks for enemy fighters now returned with their defensive fire intact. Where entire formations had lost several guns per aircraft, they now had reliable armament throughout engagements. Reported bomber losses tied directly to disabled armament dropped sharply. Ground forces, tank crews, and the Navy, battling humidity, salt spray, and mud, likewise saw dramatic improvements. The human stories followed, letters from gunners who lived because their guns kept firing, pilots who survived missions they might otherwise have lost, and a generation of technicians who learned to prefer functional reliability over mathematical perfection. One account described a P-47 pilot hit dozens of times who walked away because his guns never failed. Another detailed the Smithsonian display that years later would place a Green-modified M2 behind glass, its placard testifying to 80,000 combat rounds without a single jam. Samuel Green accepted a Medal for Merit in April 1943 at General Henry Arnold's request. He hated the attention. He returned to Pratt & Whitney, to the quiet dignity of measuring and filing tools, and he kept the hundreds of letters from grateful servicemen in a wooden box in his basement. He died in 1971, modest and private, having changed the course of countless lives with a file and a conviction that machines speak if you listen. The deeper legacy of Green's work is not merely a modification to one gun but a cultural lesson. Operational wisdom sometimes outpaces theoretical orthodoxy. The War Department later admitted that months of bureaucratic delay had cost lives and aircraft. Post-war doctrine incorporated Green's principle: build in functional tolerance, test thoroughly under real conditions, and remain open to practical ideas from unexpected places. Today, armorers are taught the value of measure twice, file once, and programs exist to solicit innovation from outside traditional channels. From the Arctic cold of high altitude to the steamy jungles of the Pacific, the reliability of the .50 caliber that hung from bomber turrets and tank pintles traces back to a Hartford toolmaker who refused to accept failure. Samuel Green's story shows that fixing what's broken, not defending what's supposedly perfect, is what wins wars and saves lives. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the civilians who quietly changed warfare, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. More stories like this are coming. A 1946 War Department study later estimated the initial delay in adopting the fix cost some 64 aircraft and 640 airmen, a grim metric for institutional rigidity. The episode became a cautionary tale and a catalyst. The military created channels to evaluate ideas from outside credentialed circles, and training for armorers came to emphasize functional testing and practical judgment. Today the M2 remains in service worldwide. Many modern .50s still use clearances descended from Green's original filing. The Smithsonian now displays a Green-modified M2 and his tools, a quiet tribute to a toolmaker whose small act of practical courage saved thousands of lives. Sometimes the best innovations come from the least expected places: a basement, a file, and a stubborn belief that making something work is more important than defending a specification. Samuel Green fixed a gun that wouldn't work, and in doing so, he helped win a war. After watching the modified weapons fire flawlessly, General Cunan asked Samuel Green two simple questions. Can this modification be performed quickly by trained armorers on weapons already in service? And can production lines adopt it without slowing down production? Green answered both confidently. Yes, sir. About 45 minutes per weapon. Production just needs to machine to a slightly different dimension, no new equipment required. Cunan made his decision on the spot. Immediate implementation across all U.S. forces. Every existing weapon would be modified during routine maintenance. Every production line would adopt the new specifications at once. The change was officially designated Modification 743, but everyone simply called it Green's Fix. Within 1 week, detailed instructions were distributed to every armory. Within 2 weeks, factories had adopted the new specs. Within 1 month, mobile modification teams were operating across US and British airfields. And within 6 months, all 96,000 existing Browning M2 machine guns had been updated. The results were extraordinary. In March 1943, before Green's Fix, 8th Air Force bombers reported weapon malfunctions on 57% of missions. By April, with 30% of the guns modified, that number dropped to 38%. By June, when nearly all were updated, the malfunction rate stabilized below 4%. Green's modification had reduced weapon failures by 94%. Even more important were the lives saved. In the first quarter of 1943, 14 bombers were lost after total gun failure. In the second quarter, after Green's modification, only 2. Captured German pilots quickly noticed the change. One intelligence report read, "American bomber gunners now maintain continuous fire throughout engagement. Previous pattern of weapon failure no longer observed. Attacking American bombers has become significantly more dangerous." Ground and naval forces saw similar improvements. Tank commanders reported that their .50s finally ran reliably. Navy ships found their guns worked even during humid, saltwater combat, critical in the Pacific against kamikaze attacks. One dramatic case came on November 2, 1943, when Captain Robert Johnson of the 56 Fighter Group was hit by enemy cannon fire. His P-47 took 21 cannon strikes and over 100 machine gun hits, yet his guns kept firing. Investigators later concluded that without Green's Fix, Johnson would have died. Instead, he survived and went on to become one of America's leading aces with 27 victories. Green's innovation didn't just save lives, it reshaped weapons design. His principle of operational tolerance became standard practice in every U.S. automatic weapon afterward. From the M60 machine gun to the M16 rifle, all carried Green's philosophy: function first, perfection second. In April 1943, General Arnold personally awarded Samuel Green the Medal for Merit, the highest honor for civilian achievement. The citation read, "For extraordinary contribution to weapons development, creating a modification that dramatically enhanced reliability and saved countless American lives." Green accepted the medal quietly. He declined interviews and returned to his workshop at Pratt & Whitney. He showed the medal once, then stored it in his desk drawer. It stayed there until his retirement in 1951. Over the years, he received hundreds of letters from soldiers and airmen whose lives were saved by his work. One came from Staff Sergeant Michael Chen, AB-17 gunner. "Mr. Green, last week we were attacked by 6 German fighters. All 13 guns worked perfectly. Before your modification, half would have jammed. We'd be dead. Because of you, we came home. Thank you for giving us guns we can trust." After the war, a 1946 Army study found that before Green, the Ordnance Department had wasted $2 million and 5 months chasing failed official solutions. Green solved the problem in 1 week with hand tools. The delay, the study concluded, had cost an estimated 64 bombers and 640 airmen. The same report urged the Army to adopt a new lesson. Unconventional ideas from unexpected sources must be welcomed, not dismissed. Green retired in 1956, living quietly until his death in 1971. His obituary was brief. It mentioned his medal, but not that his modification had been used in over 500,000 M2s. He wouldn't have minded, he never cared about fame. In 1988, the Smithsonian opened an exhibit on civilian contributions to the war. Green's tools, notebooks, and first modified bolt carrier were displayed beside his medal and letters from servicemen. Over 3 million visitors saw it, finally giving him the recognition he never sought. Today, the Browning M2 remains in service, used by over 100 Allied nations. Modern versions still include Green's dimensional tolerances. More than 2.1 million weapons carry his modification. Every time a .50 caliber gun fires flawlessly in freezing Arctic winds, desert heat, or jungle humidity, it's because of Samuel Green. A toolmaker without formal education who believed machines speak if you listen carefully. His rule still echoes through every armorer school. Measure twice. File once. Test thoroughly. And his legacy lives on in every soldier who depends on a weapon that works when it matters most. Samuel Green didn't seek glory, he just wanted to fix what was broken. In doing so, he made the impossible possible. He made the world's most used heavy machine gun reliable under any condition. He saved thousands of lives, and asked for nothing in return. That is the story of the quiet civilian who made America's .50 caliber machine gun never jam again. The M2.50 caliber machine gun remains in frontline service today. As of 2024, it serves with United States forces and over 100 allied nations. Every modern M2 still incorporates clearances derived from Samuel Green's original modification, a simple yet revolutionary change born from one man's determination to make a weapon work when it mattered most. In continuous production since 1921, the Browning M2 has become the longest-serving machine gun in American military history. Its legendary reliability traces directly to Green's work. More than 3 million have been produced, with over 2 million carrying his modification, a lasting testament to the insight of a civilian toolmaker who understood that machines speak to those who listen. From World War II through Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, and beyond, American service members have trusted a weapon that functions flawlessly in any environment, because Samuel Green once filed a bolt carrier in his basement workshop. His modification technique became standard practice, taught in every U.S. military armorer school. His emphasis on function over form and testing over theory became doctrine across military maintenance operations. Yet Green's achievement was not just mechanical, it was cultural. The Army initially resisted his solution because it came from an uncredentialed civilian who defied official specifications. Only intervention from senior leadership allowed his innovation to be accepted. General Knudsen later wrote in his memoirs, "The military must create systems that recognize innovation, no matter the source. Smart ideas come from unexpected places. Our job is to find them, not filter them." In 1988, the Smithsonian Institution opened an exhibit on civilian contributions to World War II military technology. Samuel Green was featured prominently, his original tools, notebook, and the first modified bolt carrier displayed beside his medal for merit and letters from grateful servicemen. Over 3 million visitors saw the exhibit, long overdue recognition for a man who saved countless lives. Green's influence continues today. Programs like DARPA and the Army Research Laboratory actively seek ideas from unconventional sources. The Ordnance School still teaches Green's modification as a model of ingenuity and humility. Instructors refer to Green's rule. Measure twice. File once. Test thoroughly. Each year, the Green Award honors those who improve military reliability through simple, practical innovation. Samuel Green's story is both a triumph and a warning, proof of what one person can achieve and a reminder of what nearly stopped him. His solution was brilliant, practical, and immediate, but it was needed only because bureaucracy failed. Rigid adherence to specifications and bias against outsiders almost let soldiers die with defective weapons. Whenever a .50 caliber gun fires reliably in Arctic cold, desert heat, or jungle humidity, that dependability traces back to Green's hands. The Special Forces operator trusting his weapon in a life-or-death moment depends on the principles Green established. Samuel Green, the toolmaker who never finished high school, transformed the most iconic heavy machine gun in history. He lived modestly, died quietly, and achieved immortality by making one gun work better. The mathematics were simple. Standard M2 malfunction rate in cold, 68%. Green modified M2 malfunction rate, 0.8%. Difference: thousands of American lives saved. One of those weapons, serial number 43 to 27891, now hangs in the Smithsonian. It fired over 80,000 rounds in combat with the 8th Air Force, without a single jam. The museum placard tells its story but does not name the Connecticut toolmaker who made it possible. But armorers remember. Veterans remember. Anyone who ever depended on a working .50 caliber remembers Samuel Green, the civilian who made America's .50 never jam. His life proved that innovation doesn't always wear a uniform, and that fixing what's broken matters more than following what's perfect. Samuel Green's impossible trick made the impossible possible, and in doing so, he became one of the unsung heroes who helped win World War II.